Welcome to another Lilly Endowment CCI monthly video update. I'm Aimee Portteus, and I'm happy to be here with you today. As you likely know, each month we feature a school or organization receiving funding from the Lilly Endowment to learn more about how they are collaborating to improve the lives of students and educators across the state. Today, we are very honored to be talking to Dr. Lilly Desautels. Welcome, Dr. Desautels, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Aimee. I'm happy to be a part of this discussion for a little bit.
Wonderful. Before we jump in, can you just take a moment or two to tell us a little bit about you and your work?
So I am an assistant professor at Butler University in Indianapolis, and I am currently teaching the Applied Educational Neuroscience certification. So it's grown exponentially in the last 6 years. So we are now virtual and have graduate candidates from 22 states this academic year and 4 countries. So it's just been such an honor to be able to take this trauma accommodating framework across the world. And so I'm traveling to school districts everywhere, working with schools. And I think one of the things I want to share with everyone today is that I'm back in the classroom. And it's really just been a huge, significant difference in this work with schools. Because 2 days a week, I am in a 7th grade classroom. I'm in Lawrence Township in Indianapolis at Belzer Middle School, and I'm co-teaching a couple of hours, 2 days a week, and really on the ground level. Taking these practices, the application of the research, and really integrating it with our students. And that's been all grade levels. So this is my 8th year back in the classroom. So that's a really exciting and critical part of this.
That's awesome. So you keep your hand on the pulse, huh?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know what I would have to say to you, Aimee, if I were not back in that classroom.
I really appreciate in your work how you do address the mindset of the adults in the building.
Yes.
That's just as important to start there, isn't it?
It's absolutely where we have to start. Mm-hmm.
So do you have a story or two about a particular school that you worked with that showed some growth by working with you, or some other students did?
Oh, so I think that's probably the most exciting part of this is that, when the adults are informed, when the adults begin to understand what's underneath the behavior, what's the root, and we understand that this work is an endurance event. There's excitement, there's engagement. We had a high school here in Indiana that before COVID took off or started and took off. They were in the 5th year of this framework, Applied Educational Neuroscience, North Montgomery High School, under the leadership of Michael Cox. Washington Township, where I began this work co-teaching, I moved through almost every school in the district, and we gathered data at Crooked Creek Elementary. I was with Deanna Nybarger, who was at that time a 5th grade teacher. We began integrating focused attention practices, which is basically teaching our children how to use their breath, how to use a sensation, whether it's a sound, whether it's a taste. And at that time, we were solely focused on really creating co-regulatory experiences in the 5th grade classroom. And for the very first time that year, after following the 2 semesters that we integrated this work, and it wasn't an absolute pure study, but it was a significant correlation. Those students had 100% passing on their math at that time I-STEP scores. So it was, we were just so excited. And there have been, many others that are just beginning this work. And actually, we almost, Aimee, had to start over again because of the pandemic. Everybody has been in survival the last 2 years. So the work that we had put into place, the co-regulatory and, looking at the power of connection, touch points, that's what we call this in this framework. It's not that it wasn't significant, but in survival, we just traditionally go back to the ways that we've always done it, because we just don't have the bandwidth, the emotional energy to try something outside the box. So
Yeah.
we're beginning again. And I would not say this year is normal by any stretch
Yeah.
at all. I don't even know what normal is anymore. But it's just really a very busy time and a challenging time because as we all know, our educators are feeling the impact of so much trauma.
The initial intent of the CCI grant was to increase emotional health, academic success, high school graduation rates, et cetera, preparation for meaningful life after high school. Do you feel like your work impacts all of those areas? I mean, we know we would say the emotional health piece of it, but how do you feel it impacts those other areas as well?
So it not only impacts all those other areas, it's critical for all those other areas to develop and grow and evolve. And the reason I'm saying that is the nervous system, specifically the brain, develops from the back to the front and from the inside out. And we come into the world with a brain stem that is about survival. We breathe without thinking about it. We digest food. We have circadian rhythm. But also, the brainstem is kind of grand central station of where our stress response systems are activated. And then as we move up, we've got these two, and I'm being very schematic. The brain doesn't work in regions or sections, but for our conversation today, we have these two almond-shaped clusters of neurons that live deep in the temporal lobes of the brain, the amygdala, and that's our brain smoke detector. And so the reason I'm going into this detail, because it's really important because it impacts our learning, it impacts our cognition. When we are going through adversity or we have chronic unpredictability in our lives, these lower and midbrain regions are constantly activated, and children and youth cannot even access the cortex. This prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to develop, and it's maturing into young adulthood. So, we know that for anything to get stronger or strengthen, it needs practice. And that's what was so devastating during the pandemic, is that many of our children and youth were literally living in these chronic areas in the brain where they couldn't even get to the cortex. They were living in survival. Many of us were, but the developing brain is susceptible to the chronic adversity and trauma. So this work is much deeper than social and emotional learning. It's really about the neuroeducation of the nervous system. And the goal is to get to the cortex. When we get to the cortex, then we can learn. We can, we have those social skills. We begin to learn how to emotionally regulate and create a pause in our lives. We have good, strong working memory and sustained attention. So those executive functions come to life. So it just impacts everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So where would you recommend a school start if they felt like learning loss needed to be addressed in this fashion?
So there has been, I love your question. First of all, thank you.
Okay.
It's not about learning loss, and it drives me crazy. I'm just going to be very authentic in this interview. It's we can't even attend to the learning loss and to testing until we are addressing these lower brain regions that are emotionally and sensory overactivated. So we've got to begin with meeting our children and our youth where they are. And that is sometimes when they come in, something's happened in the hall, something happened on the bus. We're hungry, we're super tired. There's been conflict at home. There might have been, schools can be adversarial for many of our students. So something happened in the second period class. So we've got to meet our kids where they are. And that happens through what we call bell work. Do now, bell ringers. It's the first 5-10 minutes of a class period. It's how we exit the day, how we exit a class period. It's using breath, focused attention practices. It's using rhythm. It's meeting our kids with some hand lotion, a cold bottle of water, just helping them, validating, using art. We journal at the beginning of class. We have an activity where, we might watch a part of a YouTube video and they have to predict the ending and draw the ending. So we've developed this 180-day scope and sequence, because I'm not a program girl. And it's really a scope and sequence for these type of practices to meet our kids where they are. That's what we've got to do to address the learning loss.
So you mentioned making sure you had resources to attend to the needs of the adults in the building. Do you have particular resources that you would recommend?
So we do. So on my website, we have social and emotional competencies for adults, and they're so cool. They're they're the ones that I use. I try to use every week. Some videos, some focused attention practices, and I have a new book coming out, and we've emphasized the adult nervous system, as we did in Connections Over Compliance, my latest book. But it's really just listening to your nervous system. It's just about, the goal is not to be regulated. I'm tired of that word. It sounds like rigor. I'm tired of it. The goal is to recognize when you're dysregulated, and that's all I want for the adults right now is that's not all I want, but that's the first thing, is just to really recognize that, what, I need a drink of water. I need a bottle of water. I need to step away. And that's why the leadership in a school is so important, because we've got to support our staff. And we've got to create a safe environment, an emotionally safe environment for the adults in a building, so they feel comfortable and they have the autonomy and the confidence to ask for help when they need it. If you ask an adult this question, is it courageous to ask for help? Everybody raises their hand, but how many of us do?
Right.
And that comes from that felt safety in a building.
Right. Yes. And I think we often unintentionally encourage people to go beyond their limits. We honor that in some way.
Oh my goodness. It's just, and it's everywhere. It's not just in Indiana. I mean, it's everywhere. There, we've had staff shortages across the nation, and we are just experiencing the emotional contagion of that compassion fatigue, that secondary trauma that our teachers are feeling, and not only feeling, they're living in it. I mean, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming is exactly the right word.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Desautels, I really do appreciate everything that we've talked about today. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to share with either the endowment or with any of our teachers that'll be listening to this, school counselors that'll be listening to this?
Well, I do have a website, and I just put everything in it. It could be overwhelming, but I just want to just give you all these resources, and it's revelationsineducation.com.
Okay, we will be sure to share that out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again. We do truly appreciate your work and for taking time today to appear on this CCI monthly video update. I'm Aimee Portteus. Have a wonderful day.